War is often reduced to a series of macro concepts and geopolitical issues, be it territorial disputes, nationalism, or even religion. Indeed, as a direct result of their mischaracterization of war, world leaders and ordinary citizens alike have quickly become desensitized to its disastrous effects, batting their eyes at the mention of a dozen military soldiers who didn't make it home or an expedition gone wrong. What is seldom shown to the public, however, is the trauma undergone by individual soldiers and their families before, during, and after they have put their lives on the line for their countries. In his book Johnny Got His Gun, Dalton Trumbo explores this very idea. Using the bedridden Johnny as a conduit for his message, Trumbo implicitly explores the far-reaching implications of war by providing readers with an up-close and sometimes too personal look at how one soldier truly feels about his participation in World War I. Ultimately, the story proves to communicate a powerful anti-war message. Before reading Johnny's story, the emotional tale of a young man who was rendered blind, deaf, limbless, and mute by a horrific artillery shell attack, please sit back and prepare to hear the equally troubling and reflective testimonies of those who have witnessed the horrors of war both directly and indirectly.
Hello, my name is Blake Smythe, and I was a part of the 2nd Infantry Regiment of the United States Army. There are some things that I'm here to address because they need to be. While overseas I earned the Purple Heart, which is awarded to wounded soldiers due to being wounded in the back badly and need a full surgery to recover. But I'm here to talk about something that I believe is even worse than a bullet, and that is the use of chemical warfare from these unjust governments and the Central Powers. By the grace of God, I was not impacted from any chemicals, but I damn sure had friends that were blinded or physically harmed and even killed. I never thought once in my life I would see what these effects would have on humans, innocent humans trying to defend democracy and freedom. A friend of mine at the time was serving alongside me and was so unlucky to inhale mustard gas, which was the main and most destructive chemical used. Warfare in itself and all it includes, such as bullets, tanks, planes, explosives, and other tactics, although obviously horrific and cynical, if it had to be, the way to fight a war. It's just when it comes to these chemicals. Think about all the non-soldiers who were affected, the men, women, and even children in local towns who had to endure these destructive implications of the chemicals due to carelessness and recklessness. Their lives ruined, even if not dead, from them. All through the careless acts of the Central Powers who had no regard for anyone that wasn't like them and stood in the way of them. It is my most sincere hope that in the future these warfare tactics of using chemicals will be banished forever. No one on God's green earth should ever have to witness what these chemicals can do to another human, let alone war itself. Thank you.
Gas warfare was not a necessarily new concept for the Europeans. However, this would be the first and last war in which the mass use of chemical warfare would be banned by order of the Geneva Convention, a set of rules between nations on how warfare should and should not be conducted, and that any act of war done outside of the boundaries of the treaty would be considered a war crime.
My name is Diana Brazel, and I'm here to tell you about my story about fighting in World War II. So I served in World War II for about 10 months, and after about 6 months fighting into battle, I was caught in a crossfire while stationed in Morocco. I remember feeling really dizzy, and I just fell to the ground, and all I saw was darkness and ringing in my ear from the people around me trying to pick me up and move me out of the battle, where the crossfire was happening. And I woke up in a hospital bed, not knowing where I was, what happened, at all in the past, for the past week. I don't remember anything from the week before that. And I looked down at my stomach, and it was covered in bandages. And I was like, what happened? I was so confused. And about 5 minutes later, a nurse came in and they told me what happened. And then the doctor came in explaining that I was rushed to emergency surgery and I was bleeding in my stomach. And there was no other choice but to remove my stomach. and it changed my life dramatically. I had to change my diet. I can never eat the same as I did before. And I also had extreme PTSD and depression for about 2 years after that. And it took a long time for me to get over it. I ended up going to multiple treatment facilities for a long duration of time, and thankfully I recovered. But ever since, I'm never going to be the person I was before war, but I'm just happy I'm here alive.
Hello, my name is Isabella. I come from Ypres, Belgium, and I would love to talk about my opinion on the war based on a certain experience of mine. My story begins in Belgium. I come from this small town, and I knew that there was a war going on, but all of a sudden one day, the soldiers started marching in. Before this, I had been hearing rumors of men coming to the nearby cities, but I never would have thought that it would happen in our little town. These men were animals, too. When I realized that they were coming, it had been too late to hide any of my valuables, and they started raiding my house for all of my belongings. I didn't want to upset them, so I sat quietly and cried while I watched them engage in hand-to-hand combat over my jewelry. These men are animals. They're not human. War makes them terrible. And war is truly terrible.
Hand-to-hand combat is a brutal form of confrontation that was not only common during the war, but almost always necessary for battles to be won. Heavy fighting around the towns of Ypres and Passchendaele, Belgium, between Entente and German forces for control of the Low Countries region occurred very often. There are known records of soldiers looting and fighting in nearby homes, mostly between British and German troops.
It's not going to be easy to talk about this, but it has to be said. John was the kindest man I ever met. The kindest man I will ever know, period. He always put other people's needs before his own. And so when the time came where he was drafted into the war, it came as no surprise to any of us that he gladly accepted it. And he accepted it with pride because he thought in his heart, this is what I have to do. You never thought, or you would never think, that even after surviving the war, that was never enough for him. I will never understand it, I guess, because I didn't experience what he did, and I didn't see what he saw, and I didn't hear what he heard. But I guess it was too much for even him to handle. And one day he decided that he just couldn't be here with us anymore. So he took his life. And I will never, ever, ever forgive him for what he did. But at the same time, I have to try to reason with him, because after speaking to people that worked with him, the war changes you. It really does. It does horrible things to you. Because the war it's not a good thing. As much as they want to promote it to make it seem like it's this good cause and how helpful it is for the country, it's not. It's killing the country's own people. We need to stop the war. We need to stop sending our men out there. We need to stop sending anyone out there. We need to stop promoting it. It's not doing anything except killing our men at faster rates. And John's death cannot go unnoticed. It cannot.